It's wonderful to have everybody here tonight. Here is Carey Kish. It's a very special evening. He's our local hero. He lives right in Hall Quarry, and we're very pleased to have him here with us. My name is Barbara Amstutz, and I'm on the board of the Southwest Harbor Public Library. And it's my pleasure today to introduce Carey. Before I introduce Carey, I'd like to just share with you some really wonderful events that are happening at the library this summer. We have many thought-provoking and fun events scheduled this summer to celebrate the library's 130th anniversary year. Pick up an events calendar at our circulation desk before you leave. It has an entire roster of events that are going on for July and August. Over the next 2 months, we're going to feature exciting displays, music, author talks, speaker presentations, children's activities, and film screenings. We will wrap up our anniversary festivities with a community pig roast and barbecue. Please come join us. It's going to be a really fun, exciting summer. For starters, you are welcome to join us tomorrow as part of the screening of Richard Russo's Empire Falls. This Pulitzer Prize winning author will join us on July 24th for a book event. So please mark your calendars. It's very special to have Richard Russo here with us in Southwest Harbor. Next Tuesday, on July 1st, we will host Sam Cohen in person and online. We'll give a lively history of book censorship in the United States. Tonight, we are delighted to host again our local author, Carey Kish, who most recently gave us a talk here at the library on beer hiking in New England. Carey is editor of the Appalachian Mountain Club's Maine Mountain Guide and author of their best day hikes along the Maine coast. Carey's writing has appeared in the Portland Press Herald, the Maine Sunday Telegram for 2 decades, as well as many other publications. We are recording tonight's event. Kate, our tech guru, will help facilitate the online audience questions at the end of the talk. Zoom participants, please remember to use the chat feature. It's my pleasure. Please warmly welcome Carey Kish.
For 90 degrees today, so thank you. I was a little nervous, but this was great. There is nothing like talking to your hometown crowd. So I'm thrilled to be here as always, and I always want to. Oh, what's that?
Speak right here.
Oh.
They need to see you.
Oh, okay, okay. Like right here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Don't move.
Okay, don't move. Okay. Well, anyway, it's nice to be here, and I always thank the library. It's just great. And I'm thrilled to see a lot of familiar faces. So, last September 23rd, I finished the Continental Divide Trail in northern Montana and walked into Canada. And with that, finished all 3 of this country's major long distance trails, what we call the Triple Crown. They are long and they are hard and they are insanely beautiful. And this kind of thing is it's a wild thing to be addicted to, but I am crazily enough and have been for a long time. I'll tell you a little bit about that. But I would love to just want to give you a sense, set the tone, if you will, about what this kind of thing is all about. It's not for everybody, but weirdly it is for me. This is September 13th, 2015, out of my journal on the Appalachian Trail. It's 50 degrees and cold rain here in Rangeley this morning. I could not get motivated to scale Saddleback in such weather, so I'm staying put. Tomorrow doesn't look any more promising, but I'll go anyway after this day of rest. I need to keep the feet moving further north. It's a game of attrition now. Can I drag me and my packload of gear across the finish line before everything falls apart? 2,000 miles takes their toll. My boots stay together only with regular gobs of epoxy. My camera quit 2 weeks ago. I use my phone now to coax that along. The latest major casualty is my little stove, the ever reliable pocket rocket. It now spits out just enough flame to heat water for dinner, barely. Name the item and it shows the requisite wear and tear, and that includes me, of course. I'm not alone in this assessment. Young or old, we're all trail weary at this point, but determined nonetheless. A DNF, did not finish, is not an option. That's something you got to know about me. Unless that decision is made for you, as in the case of at least one friend out here who broke her arm in a fall recently, and that broke my heart. Too much time is to think is too much, well, is too much time to think. That's the downside of a day off this far along. It's always better to be moving ahead. And that's what me and probably most of us northbounders here will do tomorrow. Aches and pains and battered gear be damned. So that's the essence of a long distance hike, 5.5 months into one of these things. It's wild. And you may ask why do it? Well, I'll show you a few photos, and you'll see why. There are 11 national scenic trails in the United States. The Triple Crown consists of the AT, the Pacific Crest Trail, and the Continental Divide Trail. Together, they total about 7,400 miles, more or less. And for me, all told, those journeys together, which all took place over the last 10 years, took 18, almost 19 months of time away from home on the trail. So it's quite a bit. The AT, now 2,200 miles with land acquisitions and keeps growing. Georgia to Maine, 14 states, ends on top of Katahdin, of course. I think most everybody probably knows that. And I want you to make sure you take note of this. 465,000 feet of elevation gain and loss. To hike the Appalachian Trail is essentially like climbing Mount Katahdin with a full pack about every day and a half for 6 months. So anybody been on Katahdin with a full pack? Okay, do that every day and a half for 6 months, and you'll be a thru hiker. And I'm telling you these in order of the ones I did. That was in 2015. 2019, the Pacific Crest Trail from Mexico to Canada, California, Oregon, Washington. Again, a pretty astonishing amount of gain and loss in elevation. And then finally, the Continental Divide Trail, the granddaddy of them all, last summer, Mexico to Canada, through New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. And it was extraordinary. There were some days where I was climbing 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 feet. If I wanted to do more miles, there were a few days where I was climbing 7,000 feet at elevation. So these things are just insanely rigorous, but you just can't believe how you get pulled into them, and you just want to keep going. One of my favorite quotes is one by Stephen Wright. If you have the time, isn't everywhere walking distance? Well, yeah, kind of, sort of. And I've got the time. So
That's cool.
yeah. So let's. I want to take you across these trails, show you a few photos of each, give you some insight into what goes on these hikes. In 2018, I started out with my friend from Harpswell, Don, Springer Mountain in Georgia. But of course, that was not my first Appalachian Trail rodeo. I was actually first out there in 1977 at the age of 18. I actually talked my way out of Bangor High School early, and went to Georgia and started hiking the trail, which I actually had been planning since the age of 11. So, yeah, I've got a screw loose for sure.
Is that you in the picture?
Is that me? That's me, all right. That's my International Orange 5,000 cubic inch pack, my cutoff shorts, boots that weighed 10 pounds and gave me nothing but blisters. So in 2015, set out again. I had absolutely the time of my life. what was that, 38 years later, 36 years later, 38 years later. Yeah. But through hiking, especially on the Appalachian Trail, it's about a few things in addition to scenic beauty and some beautiful people out there. It's a lot about rain. There's rain all the time, it seems sometimes on the Appalachian Trail. There are rocks, especially in Pennsylvania, in Maine and New Hampshire. So there's a lot of things that are against you. There are bears in the Shenandoahs, in the Smokies, in New Jersey. And are they dangerous? Sometimes they're dangerous if you go after them to try to take their picture. And if you come between a mother and her two cubs, as I did in Shenandoah in Virginia. There are snakes, there are copperheads and rattlesnakes. I didn't see a whole lot of them, but when I did, all of us were surprised, the snakes and me. So, but there is an adage on the Appalachian Trail, and this is it. No pain, no rain, you never get to Maine. So you really, you must learn to deal with the weather, and you do. You are stinky, you are wet, you smell, you are miserable. I know, isn't it wonderful? It's the best time. But everything else makes up for what you have to deal with out there, because you get to see places that no one else ever will, really, a fraction of people ever will. You get to experience the beautiful spring flowers in the Appalachians. That's why I always recommend to people, if you want, anybody hike the Appalachian Trail here? Oh, you have? What year?
97, 98, I did half and half.
Congratulations, my brother. Peter Man, class of 2015. What's your trail name?
Pardon?
What was your trail name?
Bones.
Bones. Well, you know what I'm talking about. No rain, no pain, no Maine.
No, true.
You get incredible views, like from this on top of, gosh, I'm forgetting the Standing Indian in the Nantahalls in North Carolina. McAfee Knob. On my first through hike in '77, it was raining and cloudy. I didn't get to see this. I waited all these years later to see this view again, and I got it on the most perfect day. This is one of the Triple Crown of Central Virginia, which is Dragon's Tooth, Tinker Cliffs, and McAfee Knob. September 1st, 2015, it was 70 degrees and not a breath of wind on the presidential range of New Hampshire, going over all the big peaks. I had just my pack on, my shorts, boots, and I was shirtless, and it was just absolutely wonderful. Those are the days you live for out on the trail. You get sunrises and sunsets. Why? Because you're camped on top of mountains. You're the only one out there. You don't get a lot of these sometimes in the city.
The green lines.
I don't know what the green lines are.
Trying to figure that out too.
There it is.
It's a technical thing, I think, right? Yeah. We're gonna just say it's artsy. And speaking of camping on top of mountains, this is Max Patch Ball in North Carolina. I got up there late in the day after my first long day, like 18 miles. I hauled a bunch of water up there. This was my my house for the night. Not another soul around.
Wow.
So it may start to come to you why in the end you endure all the pain and the physical torture, but because you get days and nights like this. And then one day in northern Maine, on top of Whitecap Mountain in the 100-mile wilderness, looking at Katahdin, I have this out-of-body experience. Like I was standing there talking to myself, and I said, wow, this has been really fun. I should do this again. And it was never supposed to be that way. But these are the people. In the end, through hikes are beautiful things. You go through incredible scenery. You have this wild experience, all the physical ailments and all. But all in the end, it's all about the people you meet, the trail angels, the people on the trail that you're hiking with. You bond immediately because they're all out there trying to accomplish the same thing. There's trail magic, trail angels that feed you beer at 9 o'clock in the morning and hamburgers at the roadside. Trail angels that bring you into town, take you back to the trail, put you up at their house. And you just have the greatest time. And if anybody wants to know how I earned the name Beer Man, my trail name, this kind of lets you know. I never carried beer like some people have asked me, but in the end, it was a stroke of genius that I never even planned for. With the name Beer Man, everybody wanted to meet Beer Man, and everybody wanted to buy Beer Man a beer. Brilliant. One of the best things I ever did in life, besides marry my wife, Fran. So on October 4th, 2015, on a fantastic day in the company of my wife and a couple of good friends, landed up on top of Katahdin at the end of the Appalachian Trail. And again, this was not my first time finishing the AT. I don't know if you follow the AT, anybody, the history, that's Warren Doyle, who's hiked the Appalachian Trail 18 times. This was on his third trip or fourth trip. Did it a bunch more times, but that was us, the crew of us on their middle of October in 1977. This is my picture in the Bangor Daily News at the end of my AT trip in 77. And I'm this way. This is the weird part about me. I waited all those years to hike the trail again and recreate that photo. So, and I did. I gotta tell you, the Appalachian Trail was such a powerful experience at age of 18. When I thought I knew everything about the world, and the AT taught me, you know nothing. You know nothing. But it imprinted me. It really altered my DNA. And in some way, shape, or form, for all those years, I thought about doing the trail again. The trail had such a great influence on my life. The ability to be out there with such simple things on your back, food, shelter, and water, and being free from morning to night, day after day. It's so powerful, and therein lies the addiction. It's a crazy thing. So what is the Appalachian Trail really, or what is any long trail about? It's what Myron Avery said, or Ben Mackay, the founder of the Appalachian Trail, to walk, to see, and to see what you see. And I got to tell you, I was interviewed by Rob Caldwell on 207 after this hike. And he said, so what was it like out there? What did you think about? And I said, well, Rob, I thought about everything. Old girlfriends, teachers, classes, jobs I had, this, that, and the other thing. Because what do you do all day? You walk and you have time to think, right? And then I said, there came a point where I didn't have anything to think about. He goes, well, that's not possible. I said, oh, but it is. I experienced it. I realized somewhere in central Pennsylvania, I think it was, I kind of stopped and I said, I haven't thought about anything in like 4 days. I had totally reviewed my entire life, thought about everything there was to think about, and I was done. I was 40. No, really. What is nirvana in the end? It's being free like that. I had cleared it all out. It was a wonderful thing. And it really does happen. And pick your experience. Climb Mount Everest, whatever great experience that changes you, you can achieve that very same thing. I'm sure in your lives, many of you have done that as well. It's incredible. Again, I go back to the addiction. You want to know why? Because you really can achieve that feeling of freedom out there like no other thing. So the AT was supposed to be one and done, but it wasn't. So I chose to go to the Pacific Crest Trail next, Mexico to Canada, up the west coast through the high desert of Southern California, and then through the Sierra Nevada, and then the Cascade Range of Oregon and Washington. This is a long ways. It's much different than the AT. It's wilder. You're very remote, incredibly scenic though. It was a really snowy, rainy spring that year, which had its upside and downsides. The upside was a super bloom of wildflowers in the Southern California desert, and lots of water, because when you're out there in the wilds, you need water, especially if it's the high desert. And Southern California had lots of that. Again, a different experience. There's no shelters on the Pacific Crest Trail, so you're tenting out. But you're meeting all these crazy people who are out there doing the same journey you are, and you're bonding over that. It's pretty amazing. This couple here I met at a hostel. These are their laundry clothes. If you've ever experienced this, when you get to a hostel where there's laundry services, they will often give you loaner clothes. Well, my friend Axman and Jay Marie, they chose that outfit. That's one of my favorite pictures of the entire frame. So on the Pacific Crest Trail, because of it just kept snowing in the mountains, not only in the Sierra, but in the Cascades. It snowed all the way into May and into June, which is pretty unusual. So by the time I got to the Sierra Nevada, there was 212% of the normal snowpack for that time of year. That's a lot of snow. So I ended up flipping up to Oregon and hiking south. There was still snow up in Oregon and Northern California, but there was less of it, and it was at a lower elevation. So I kind of hiked south, connect the dots, and then moved back up to finish the hike in Washington. Anybody been out to Northern California and seen Mount Shasta? Shasta. Isn't that incredible? The Pacific Crest Trail for 3.5 weeks, makes this huge arc around Mount Shasta. So you are always looking at it, and you're seeing its different faces as you go by. It's pretty incredible. Bernie Falls, Central California, one of the most beautiful I've ever seen.
I hiked up a ski down.
And one of the wildest places really was south of Sonora Pass, heading towards Yosemite. Just rock and ice and snow, that just stark terrain. And it not only looked wild, it really was wild. Yes, Don?
How did you know where the trail was?
Well, you can often see it going into these snowfields and out. And you are using a GPS navigation app on your phone. I did carry paper maps and a compass, because I'm not that much of a fool. But I didn't use them much because the GPS app.
Did you get lost very much?
I did on the Continental Divide Trail, just because of the nature of the terrain. Not so much on the PCT. There's potential for that, though. Definitely potential. What you really want to avoid on these steep snow slopes was to take a big fall. But I did carry micro spikes and an ice axe and use them, because you kind of have to. But look at this. This is in the John Muir Wilderness in the heart of the Sierras. That's Banner Peak, Thousand Island Lake. I'll go back to this again. Why do this? This is it. This is it. You're out there seeing things that Mother Nature's natural beauty, like nothing else. And to be able to camp on mountaintops, with all just the simplest of lightweight gear that you're carrying on your back from place to place. One of my favorite places was the Muir Hut at Muir Pass. This is at about 12,000 feet. It's a place this is the second time I've been there. And it was probably the most beautiful campsite. It was just me and my hiking buddy Ranger at the time. And 12,000 feet, not a soul around for probably 50 square miles. You know, we're out there. And we're days from a road in any direction. So and that's me. He hung his hammock in the my friend Ranger was a hammocker. He didn't have a tent. And so he almost didn't stay, so we figured out a hang inside of the Muir Hut. From the plaque that honored Muir inside to a hole outside We strung the thing through and tied it outside. He slept inside. I slept in my tent out here. Summited Mount Whitney. I was in such good shape at the age of 60. I darn near ran up Mount Whitney, 5,000 feet in 5 hours. 14,000 feet, the highest point in the continental United States. And then back up to Southern Oregon to finish the trail going north. Fran drove out west with our camper and met me and my hiking buddy Ranger and Billy. Met us in Southern Oregon, and she, Fran, tagged along with me and us all the way to the Canadian border, which was pretty cool. So my best trail angel is that one right there. But she would meet us with steaks and burgers and cold beer every now and again, as often as she could at road crossings. This is Crater Lake. Anybody been to Crater Lake? So you know it is indeed as beautiful. This hardly does it. It is one of the most spectacular places on Earth. And the PCT, for some odd reason, goes out and around it. I took the rim trail and got a good chunk of the west edge of the lake. Amazing. Mount Hood in Oregon. And then finally Washington, the Evergreen State. I was late by the time I got to Washington. I'd been very sick in California. I got norovirus. I was in the hospital. Tough stuff. I thought I was going to end my hike. But I got well again after being, a friend of mine took care of me for a few days after spending some time in a motel near the hospital, because with norovirus, you have to be near the hospital and you need to be near a toilet too. So it was tough. So I lost a lot of time on the trail. So by the time I got to Washington, it was pretty late in the year, and you're going into some of the most remote terrain in the lower 48 in Washington. But it was fall, it was beautiful, late September, just spectacular walking. This is in the Goat Rocks Wilderness. If it had been a better day, you would see the cone of Mount Rainier right here, but it was still pretty cool. And then into the Alpine Lakes Wilderness. In the last 10 days I was on the trail that year, it snowed 4 times. Unseasonable snow really for that time. You can get snow, but it was amazing how much got dumped, and it just made conditions really dicey, because north of Stevens Pass I was going into the Glacier Peaks Wilderness, the most remote part of the entire Pacific Crest Trail. And a day into that stretch, we got another snowstorm. It was snowing probably 1 inch, 2 inches an hour. And we were only going higher and further away from the paved road, of course. And my friends and I called it, and we said, we're out of here. We're out of here, because people have died doing that kind of stupid stuff. And we weren't interested in dying out there. And you can, and you do. And there were rescues going on. The Forest Service was out there rescuing people. There was a bunch of us out there. I can tell you so many stories. We got ourselves out of trouble before we got into real trouble. My sleeping bag was soaking wet. Our shoes were soaking wet from the rain, and then it snowed. It was just a horrible situation. So stuff like that does happen. You know, you look back on it now and you go, it's like, okay, all right, we got through that. But it's a fine line between life and death out in the wilderness. And the tables can turn on you so quickly. So you really need to be prepared, and you gotta make good decisions in the end. You gotta make good decisions. Just recap. This is how the trip went from the Mexican border up to Kennedy Meadows, and then because of the snow, I flipped up to Southern Oregon and hiked south, and then back up to Oregon, and then I had some unfinished business because I couldn't finish the trail that year. And Colin Fletcher, if you know him, the author, there's a powerful human compulsion to leave things tied up in little bundles, but every journey except your last has an open end, right? So having that 180 miles of trail left to go really kind of, it just gnawed at me. I was satisfied with what I'd done, but wanted to get out there and finish. But the next year was COVID and you couldn't go anywhere, right? So it wasn't until 2021 that I was able to get back out to Washington and finish the hike September 9th with my good buddy, Billy, who hiked probably 1,000 miles with me. And lastly, the granddaddy of them all, the Continental Divide Trail. Now, maybe 3,000 people a year hike the AT, maybe 1,500 a year, 2,000 hike the Pacific Crest Trail. 2 years ago, 400 people started out on the Continental Divide Trail. And I think, I don't know, 70 finished, something like that. So it is long. It's anywhere from 2,600 miles, depending upon your route, up to about 3,000, 3,100 miles. My route, the way I went, there are a lot of alternates, which is kind of cool about the whole Continental Divide Trail. My route was about 2,700 miles. But this is the Mexican border, late March of last year. Incredible, but you're out in the foothills of southern New Mexico, and there ain't nothing out there. Just nothing. And it's dry. Fortunately, the Continental Divide Trail Coalition, they will for a price, they will shuttle you to the border because it's a really rough route to get in there, and a car can't make it. So they will drive you in there. And then they will give you access to 5 water caches in the first 80 miles. And there are also other water sources occasionally, like these cattle tanks. And when these ran out after 80 miles, you often had to rely on these cattle tanks, and they all didn't look as good as that. But I want to tell you, I will never thumb my nose up at water with algae in it. Water is water, and I treated my water, this kind of water. If it came out of a spring, I didn't treat it. Don't quote me on that. Water is water, and it is so precious. The Gila Wilderness, I'll give you just some highlights of some of my favorite places. New Mexico is incredible. The Mogollon Mountains, the high plains, crossing the Gila River. And you took, it was, you know, it just wasn't a lot of cover out in the desert. So you took your shade wherever you got it. The lone cypress tree, not cypress, cedar tree, the junipers. If that might be the only shade around for 30 miles, you know. Occasionally trail angels like Radar here would put out some water caches, give you a ride into town if there was a town to go to. What did it look like out there? Typical campsite, me and my 2-man tent, everything in there, having a good time. This is me in my dooryard right here. It was very typical for me to hike all day long from about 7:30, 8 in the morning till 5, 6 at night, cover 15, 20 miles. Get to camp, put my tent up, get my gear in, find water, get into the tent, get in my sleeping bag, lay on my elbow and cook my dinner and go to sleep. And you get up the next day and you do that again. And you get up the next day and you do that again. And you do that for about 180 days and you have a successful thru hike. It's there's a lot of it's half mental, you know. There's the physical part of it, but I've been lucky, and any thru hiker will probably tell you, you really can kind of turn your mind off and just grind out your days. You're enjoying the beauty, you're enjoying it, but you really have to kind of steel yourself with you know, the ups and downs and the climbs and whatever weather is getting thrown at you. But it's amazing to be able to be camped out in these places, wide open country, just nothing around. The Continental Divide Trail, for sure, goes through some of the most rugged, remote country in the lower 48, for sure. But again, it's beautiful, but it's the people. It's always the people. I was hiking north of Cuba, New Mexico, going up into the mountains, and there was a place you could drive into. There were campsites and whatnot, and there was a family around the lake and these 2 young kids. And this little guy, little William, he was out there with a hot dog on a stick waiting for a thru hiker to come out. And I was not getting past with him. And his father goes, "You better go with him." They had a fire going. He took me to his campsite. I cooked the hot dog and he stood right there. He just watched me eat it. And on my way. John at TLC Ranch in an area of private land where there is no public land for the trail. You're walking a road for 30 miles. John and his family cater to hikers. They provide camping, they provide fresh water, fresh fruit. They used to take people in for dinner every night, but there's too many hikers out there now, relatively coming through. But they're just lovely people, living a hard scrabble life out in the middle of the New Mexico desert. At a 9,000-foot pass on a Forest Service road in the middle of nowhere, our friend, Fran and I got to know very well, Grace, set out everything a thru hiker loves: Gatorade, fruit, junk food, and it's just wonderful. Anybody been to Ghost Ranch in New Mexico? Then. This is the area around Ghost Ranch, the Chama River Valley. Amazing. I'm drawing a blank. Georgia O'Keeffe, the artist Georgia O'Keeffe, painted a lot of these scenes out there. The red rock, the canyons, the sagebrush plains, pretty incredible. And then eventually, northern New Mexico, of course, you get up into the southern San Juans, and there was snow. There was 5-6 feet of snow on the ground, and not a lot of dry places to put your tent up. And it's New Mexico, and it's late May. And it's like, well, I'm into it now. But eventually, you do get to the Colorado border, and off you go into the big mountains, the San Juans. And we're talking elevations 12, 13,000 feet. The trail does hit 14,000 feet at Grace Peak. I was not feeling well during that area, so I skirted the high Grace Peak at 14,000 feet. But I went over my share of 12,000 and 13,000 foot peaks. But a lot of my days were hiking through this kind of terrain, wide open, huge snowfields. Unfortunately, in June in Colorado, you're getting chased almost every day by afternoon thunderstorms and occasionally lightning. And there is nothing more exciting, I gotta tell you, than being at 12,000 feet and having a lightning storm chasing your tail. And you learn to run very fast with a full pack. Unfortunately, a lot of times there's nowhere to go. There isn't a tree for miles. So, but running makes you feel good. So you run. But I only got in a bad situation a couple times. I got in a huge hailstorm, and then right after the hailstorm, I knew what was coming, and it was the lightning. And the lightning just cracked down all around me at the Devil's Thumb Pass. And I just ran at full tilt about 1,500 feet down the slope through this big burn area as fast as I could go. I was slipping and falling and tumbling. It was like, I got to get out of here. And I got down, and I got out of the storm, and I got into the mosquitoes. I got man-eating mosquitoes. So the fun never ends. The fun never ends. But Colorado is pretty amazing. I'll never hike through terrain like that again. Going up over these huge fields. And there's not a lot of people out there. You're talking, hundreds, maybe 150, 200 other hikers out there. So I spent a lot of time alone, in between. Well, I'll get to my lovely wife was my trail angel again on the Continental Divide Trail. But, this is one of my favorite photos of the whole thing. This is really, if you think about it, this is the whole hike in one photo. This is me with my pack on late in the day. I don't know, I probably got 15 miles under my belt. I'm going to do 5 or 10 more before I camp. And there's just nothing around, nobody around, just me. But amazing, the wildflowers in the Colorado mountains. Every now and again, I'd reach a Forest Service road. Somebody would drive by, say, "Do you need a cold beer?" Yeah, yeah. Um, typical on the Continental Divide Trail was not typical to build a fire. One day halfway through Colorado, it's like, I, I just gotta have a fire. I'm not just gonna go to bed tonight. I'm gonna get my water, I'm gonna hang out, I'm gonna have a fire. I'm gonna have a little nip of my Jim Beam bourbon and just hang out. But these are these few evenings are the ones I really remember because it was just lovely to be, you know, me and the sounds of the woods out there and a little bit of fire. That's Continental Divide Trail TV right there on every channel. I also got to camp in a Forest Service toilet. I camped on the women's side. It was very hot that day, and the men's room was on the sunny side. So I camped on this side. Had it rained, I would have gone inside and put my tent on. I have camped at anybody here else camped in a Forest Service toilet? See, it's wonderful. I camped in one inside next to the toilet on the Appalachian Trail. It was quite nice.
Was upstairs.
Boots, I'm a very lucky man. Boots, of course, your feet are, you know, everybody's feet are unique. So some boots fit, some don't. I was lucky 10, 15 years ago to find a pair of boots called Loa. They're German, Loa Renegades, and I've now had 10 pair. I'm on my 10th pair of these, and I've had exactly this many blisters. And when you're walking long distances, like I have been, the fact that you can walk all day with a heavy pack up and down mountains and not get any blisters. It also takes the right socks too. Fox River liner sock and a LLV Katahdin sock as a midweight sock. Pretty amazing. Couple of scary things that happened on the Continental Divide. This is Lake Ann Pass. It's really hard to capture this in a photo, but you come up, it's about a 3,000 foot climb up to Lake Ann Pass. And this is a cornice, and it's about a third of a mile long. And it goes from one side of the mountain wall to the other, and it drops about 1,500 feet down the other side. The trail drops over here. I heard about this cornice. I could have taken an alternate route, and I said, nope, I gotta see what this thing is all about. So I crawled out here to the edge and I looked over, and I couldn't even get close enough. My knees were just freaking wobbling. I was so scared. And I couldn't even get close enough to see where the footsteps that I heard went down the other side. Somebody said you can climb down backwards, and then you just kind of glissade down the next 1,000 feet. It's like, no, that doesn't sound good to me at all. So take a look at that picture.
Yep.
And then that's where I was.
Oh, my God.
That's where I was. And you can see where people had, there's actually footsteps here. But I couldn't even get there. It was so, no, not doing it. So I went over here. I said, I had given the cornice a good look. And by the way, I'm 50 miles from the nearest road back. So that's like 2.5 days. So going forward is the way. I just had to figure out which way. I would do that if I had to, but it was not my first choice. I came over here to the cornice, and there was a break where people, I could see it was like a 25-foot drop. And I could see where people had kind of tossed themselves over and slid. The only thing is, if you didn't stick your landing, you were going all the way. That wasn't very good either. So I kept going along the cornice all the way to the edge up here, and it separated out from the mountain, and I was able to get my way around and get around the cornice and start down. Now I gotta tell you, my route down was down here. Anybody been up Huntington Ravine on Mount Washington? Well, this is like Huntington Ravine on steroids. It was a couple thousand feet, 1,500 feet of just steep as all get out, rock and grass and loose dirt and all that. And I just inched my way down. And when I got down to the bottom down here at Lake Ann, I wanted to get on my knees and thank God. It's like, wow, I got through. On the bottom of my Mountain House food bag that night they put these sayings on it, and I had never noticed them before. It's like, wake up with a purpose and go to bed exhausted. It's like, yes, every day out here. So let's get to my lovely wife. Fran came out and, well, long story short, I'll just kind of parse it. She got me out to southern New Mexico and followed me all the way to northern Montana. Not quite to the end. I'll tell you about that in the end. So every week or so, you would meet up with me at some road crossing, Forest Service road, a highway, whatever it was, and I had like a huge box of Mountain House food and other food from Walmart and all that in there, and I could resupply and go on my way. And Fran would cook me a good meal, and I have a cold beer. So it was pretty neat. It's pretty neat. And it might sound cushy, of course, but I did have to do the work every day, carry the pack. But she would meet me. And while I was out hiking, she was also meeting other hikers and being a trail angel to other hikers. So everybody out on the Continental Divide Trail in 2024 knew the blue Toyota Tacoma with the white camper and the red and green Christmas kayaks on top, and Mrs. Beerman. Oh, there you go. She's waiting for me right there with cold beer. And we would often we would go to an RV campground, some kind of campground, or just pull into the Forest Service road and just drive till we could find a place to park. And we just had the best time. And then the next day she'd put me back on the trail, and I'd see her in another week. So this is just, and she was always helping me and others. Yeah, Mrs. Beerman. Mrs. Beerman.
What did you do in between?
What's that?
What did you do in between the drops?
She had the time of her life, camping and seeing all kinds of cool things.
Okay.
And she actually, you gave a presentation of her own journey to the Maine Outdoor Adventure Club. Maybe you want to have her do a talk. Yeah. So how did we communicate? And I carried a satellite communicator. Anybody own one of these? Garmin. If you're out there, way out there, you can text back and forth, or anyone actually, and it pairs with your iPhone or your Android, and you can get up-to-date weather forecasts. And in the end, there's an SOS button if you know what hits the fan. So I got one of these for the Pacific Crest Trail. This is an upgraded one. My Fran and my mom insisted that I carry a satellite communicator because I was going to be so far out there. And I was like, I don't want one of those stupid things. But I said, if you buy it, I'll carry it. And I did. And now I've sold on it. This will save your life. Or has a high probability to do that. It's that useful. So I highly recommend it.
Did you use far out?
What's that?
Did you use far out at all?
I'm getting to that right now.
Okay.
Far out after you here.
Yep.
This is modern day long distance hiking. You can in real time on your phone know where you are at all times. And you can also sadly know your elevation gain and loss. And most days do look like that. And then there's more information on the app about the towns along the way and what's available in the towns and that kind of thing. It is the way through hiking is done. And I got to tell you, I did not carry backup maps, and I did not carry a compass on the Continental Divide Trail. You don't need it anymore. I had a compass on my phone. But you know what I did carry? I did carry pages out of the DeLorme Atlas, because at least I could get to a road if I at least knew which way to go. So I did have that as a backup. Into Wyoming with my good buddy Chuckerbird, and then through the Great Divide Basin, one of the wildest, most bizarre landscapes in North America. It's this huge bowl formed by where the Continental Divide splits and then comes back together. And all the water that enters falls into that huge bowl. It's 200 miles long, stays there. It does not drain into any ocean. And walking across the Great Basin is monotonous as heck, but it is strangely beautiful. And the wind blows like stink because there's nothing to block it. So all day long, you get incredible sun and wind that will make your head spin and your ears ring. But it was pretty cool. And camping out there was just bizarre. There's no trees for hundreds of miles. So that's kind of how I felt after going through the Great Divide Basin. I don't know where I am. Getting into Rawlins when I was in southern Wyoming, I went to the Walmart aisle 6, and I may have taken a scale down and out of its box and put it on. This is only conjecture. I'm not sure if this really happened. And I did weigh myself, and I lost 30 pounds by that point. And I ended up losing a total of 32 pounds total. At some point in the hike, you don't lose any more weight because you're building muscle. I was back to my weight from Bangor High School, 1977, 142 pounds. Pretty amazing. So if you're interested in a weight loss program, boy, do I have one for you. A couple other beautiful spots in Wyoming before we hit Montana and the end of the trail. Anybody been to the Wind River Range? Oh my gosh. This is the Cirque of the Towers in the Wind River Range in northwestern Wyoming, just before you get to Yellowstone. It is nothing but spires and towers and granite faces. Pretty amazing country. I've never seen anything like it. And I was able to hike through that for several days. Camping out there, look at that. It's like Yosemite on steroids. Cirque of the Towers. And then up and over Green River Pass. This is Green River Pass right there. The source of the Green River and ultimately the Colorado River is right up in here. And then you come down, follow the Green River, and you pass Square Top Mountain. And Fran was camped ahead at Green River Lake, and I said, I had talked to a guy a few days back, and I said, how am I going to know if I'm getting to Green River Lake or not? He says, you'll see Square Top Mountain. He says, I said, well, how will I know when I see Square Top Mountain? He says, oh, you'll know Square Top Mountain. So besides Katahdin, I think this was probably the prettiest mountain I've ever seen. And then you get down to Green River Lake where I hung out with Fran for a little bit. The backcountry of Wyoming, pretty amazing. We met packers every now and again. This is camping in the Cirque of the Towers. And then finally to Yellowstone. And I watched Old Faithful go off with about 5,000 other people. Yeah. And I only went there, I had to see Old Faithful again. And there was a snack bar where I could buy a $20 hamburger and fries. So I couldn't pass that up.
When were you there?
We were in Yellowstone middle of August. Thereabouts, late August.
Okay. All right.
Late August. Yep.
Missed you.
And it was mobbed. It was mobbed kind of like Acadia is right now.
Yeah.
One of the things from the Wind River Range all the way to Canada, you're in different country. You're in grizzly bear country. So I was carrying bear spray, pepper spray. I had not done any of this before. Anybody hiked in bear country? Yeah, so you know.
Yellowstone, we had to take that.
I had to carry a bear canister for 400 miles on the Pacific Crest Trail. I loathed that thing every day I had it because it didn't fit any which way in your pack. And I said, the only damn thing this is good for is to sit on in camp. You know, bear canister. So I said, this time I'm going to go with an Ursack, which was allowed. It's a Kevlar bag. And with a climber's carabiner, you put all your food in this at night and you tie it, you go 100 yards or so away from your camp, and you tie it to a tree with 3 overhand knots, and then couple of square knots, I think they were, not square knots, fisherman's knot, I think, and then you, in any case, you attach it to the tree, and if a bear get at about chest height, and if a bear pulls on it or any animal, it actually will tighten the bag to the tree, so it's impossible. So it worked out pretty good for not a whole lot of extra weight. So yeah, so Montana, I'd say all of the Continental Divide Trail out west is big sky country because you're just out in the open all the time. Now, part of the reason my route was a little shorter than the divide itself is because it's a very long ways from Mexico to Canada along the Continental Divide Trail. Only maybe a handful of people every year walk the entire red line, if you will, and they're usually about 6'5" and 22 years old. And it's a fact. It's a fact. Most people, when they get to Montana, are pretty burned out. It's a long ways and it's hard, and you're looking to get to Canada. So a lot of people will cut across the long loop of the Idaho-Montana border, and a lot of that involves either unmarked trails or walking along roads. I chose roads for a couple 100 miles, but it turned out it was a lot of fun. Saw some beautiful things, met some beautiful people. Got to hang out with Fran a little more often. We went to some hot springs. There was beer and good food, so I can't complain. But all good things must come to an end. In late August, it was beginning of September, Fran had booked a trip in Spain, a wine, women, and walking tour of all things, and she had to drive home from Helena, Montana, and left me to do the last month up there on my own. Gosh, I never thought I'd have a big meltdown. I knew she was leaving the whole time, but she drove away, and I had a couple of really rough days. So it was hard. That's Fran saying goodbye to me at McDonald Pass outside of Helena. But I was very lucky. A couple of friends of mine who I'd known really since the beginning of the hike. We'd leapfrogged on and off the whole way. Amy and Gavin from the United Kingdom, just wonderful. So we met up. They had been delayed. Had been waiting for a package with a new Thermarest air mattress. It didn't come. It didn't come. It didn't come. And it never came. And I got there, and we patched up Gavin's mattress with lots of duct tape, and we hiked the rest of the trail together. And I'm so glad, because the end of my hike would have been very long and lonely because there was no one else out there. And these guys, we shared it together. There was very few people out there, let's say, on the same path I was on. So the last 3 weeks, 300 miles or so, I was through the Scapegoat Wilderness and the Bob Marshall Wilderness. And I have never been so out there in my entire life. I think the two of those lands together are about 3 million acres. And when you're in the heart of the Bob Marshall Wilderness, you're 2-3 days from a road. It's bizarre country. And one of the most beautiful places, this is actually 2 slides that I put together. They just happen to match. This is the Chinese Wall. It's a limestone escarpment in the Bob that runs for 50 miles in this big wave. It's amazing. Incredible rivers, and it's getting late now. It's mid-September, but it's already cold. And what I was afraid of the whole time was what happened on the Pacific Crest Trail. In the middle of the Bob or in the Glacier National Park, it's getting snowed in. And how the heck do you get out? You don't. And of course, you are in grizzly country, and they're all around. They see you. You don't often see them. And it was high time for huckleberries, blueberries, thimbleberries, raspberries. So they were out there, and they're big. They are big. And I never saw a grizzly. People before me and after me saw grizzlies, and I'm okay with that. And very rarely, for the entire Continental Divide Trail, very rarely did I get to camp with anybody. And the last night in the Bob before we hit Highway 2, there was a bunch of thru-hikers came through, and there were probably 8 of us that shared an evening together. That was quite a special treat. So finally, Glacier National Park, stunning country, had never been. never really kind of all around it, but never been. You have to get a permit to get in there and stay at specific campsites. So it was a little weird in that way. But it was kind of cool because that forced all the thru hikers to stay together each night. So we had camaraderie each evening in camp. Pretty amazing though. It was a fantastic way to finish the trek. This is coming up. This is my friend Amy coming up Pittamagan Pass. Again, getting cold and you're watching the weather and just hoping. And that's Canada up in there somewhere. Last couple of days. On the, and this is typical. This is a campsite. So there's a bunch of us around. And it was kind of cool. We're all 9 to 5 here, finishing his Triple Crown. So we're all kind of hanging out. It was pretty neat. And had I not met up with these guys, I would have been 3 weeks all by myself out there. And that wasn't going to be a great way to finish a long trip. So, and we did have company. The last evening, there were 8 firefighters from Edmonton, Alberta out there, and we hung out with them, had a great sunset. Just wonderful company. We all hung around. You can't have a fire, so you just kind of circle around, and we all had a little bit of bourbon or scotch or something. We had a good time. And the final morning of the trek it was a 19-mile day total, 15 to the border. Just beautiful, cold, but stunning landscape out there. Nothing. And finally, Waterton Lakes at the south end. This is Canada. The northern end, about 4 miles up here. Excuse me, this is the U.S. Northern end up there is Canada. And there's actually a ranger station where you can call Canadian Customs and you check in, and they let you go by the border. And then you're wandering along, your head's spinning, and you're going through the woods, and all of a sudden you pop out, and there's the monument, and you step across into Alberta and the Continental Divide Trail. 6 months and 2,700 miles is almost over. It's over, but you got to walk 4 miles to town. I lost my mom in 23, 97 years old. I don't know if anybody, well, some of you had met my mom, but I carried her picture the whole way. And I know she was there. I had to make a lot of tough decisions in 6 months out there on the trail, and I had a lot of help. And she was up there doing what she always did, make good decisions. So. And then finally in Waterton Lakes, we bellied up to the bar and spent an ungodly amount of money eating and drinking, and from there, all of us scattered across the globe. It was pretty wild. So I love this. I found this was on TV, I think on Thanksgiving Day this year. Obstacles are those frightful things you see when you take your eyes off the goal. And a thru hike is all about the goal, and it is an obstacle. And these hikes are all long and hard, like I said at the outset. And you attack them like you do most everything in life, one day at a time. I really do think a lot of it's like, from the Alcoholics Anonymous, it's all about one day at a time. You can't be at the Mexican border thinking about the finish 6 months later. You won't get there. So you do this day. You do what you have to do to get through this day. You hike this day. I can get through this weather today. I can drink this green water tonight. Whatever it is. And then tomorrow I'll get up and do it again. And I hope I can string all those days together. And if you can, you've completed a thru hike, and there's no feeling like it. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it, and I didn't take too much time, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful. And we have time for questions, right?
Like I said, a little bit after, so maybe if we have questions, 2 questions from the crowd, if anyone has one online, if anyone has a burning question?
Anybody got
Any questions?
Yes,
Okay.
any?
So, Especially in regards to the desert, how did you know or how did you find water?
Again, you're carrying, you have an app on the phone. In this case, it was an app named Far Out for the Continental Divide Trail. So it has the water sources listed. The key is there a water?
Right.
You know, is there water when you get there? And you rely to a certain extent on what we call trip reports. People ahead of you can leave comments. This source is dry, this source is good, this source isn't where it really, you know, it's not really here, it's over there. Here's the direction. So there's a lot of that goes on. As a general rule, things were as they were on the app. So, yeah.
Carey,
Yes.
how old are you?
How old am I? 66. 66. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
How do you recharge your device? Go ahead. How do you recharge your devices?
Recharging today.
How do you recharge your device? I carried a 20,000 milliamp hour brick, a battery, what do they call it, power bank. And I recharge my devices. I tried to minimize this time. I only had to recharge my phone. If I was careful, my phone would go down only 20% a day because I keep it on airplane mode. So I could get about 5 days out of it before I even had to charge it. And then the new Garmin InReach Mini 2 would only lose about 7% a day. So I could go an entire week with that. And I think that's all I had. So when I would get to town, I would charge all three together and I'd be good for another. I'm very conservative when it comes to power out there because when you're navigating with your phone, power on that thing is everything. So, and a lot of people listen to podcasts, they listen to all kinds of stuff and they're draining their battery day after day. And I just can't do that. So, yes.
How many days food and water do you typically carry?
How many days food and water?
How many days food and water? It all depended upon the stretch and you estimate and you always carry a little extra. I think the most I ever carried was through the Bob Marshall Wilderness. I had 9 days, 9 days, which is a heavy pack, too heavy. And then, you know, food and water. My base weight was probably a little more than most people. I had a 2-person tent and a few other things like that that I just wasn't, you know, and I did not have an ultralight pack itself. So I carried a little more weight than most, but I had the things I needed. A lot of the ultralight folks out there, they end up getting cold and they're hungry. And that's not a good thing to be when you're so far out there. I don't want to, you don't want to live that close to the edge out there. Yeah, yes.
Kind of a 2-part question, but how much was your pack weight typically?
I think the base weight was about 18 with food and water generally around 30 pounds.
30? Okay, right.
Yeah.
Other question too is when you were going through the glacier, you were carrying your micro spikes and some other winter gear. Did you have them drop somewhere? Did Fran get them to you, or did you start with them from the Mexican border?
No, I picked them up, I think at Ghost Ranch, because I knew I was getting into 10,000 feet or more in the San Juans. So she had all that stuff with it. No, if it had been a different situation, I would have mailed that stuff to me, but Fran was there to support, so I could rely on her. Yes,
Thank you,
Don.
Any other
What kind of food
questions?
did you eat? I mean,
I'm
was it
sorry. Yeah, one more.
Was it freeze dried or was it, what kind of food?
I love Mountain House freeze dried food, so I would eat it at home if Fran wasn't such a good cook. Yeah.
It's fairly light then.
Yeah. Anybody?
Wonderful.
Yeah, all right, we good?
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys very much. And if anybody, I do have a few of my books here, if anybody would like one, I was happy to sign it, that kind of thing. And thank you guys very much here at the library for having me again, and thank you all for a wonderful night. So
It was
thank
great.
you.
Great.